Alright, so good afternoon to everyone and welcome to another episode of Moyo Math. Today we are going to be looking at consumer arithmetic as we prepare for the CSEC exam in May-June of 2025. Remember, every week, every Saturday from now until the exam in May-June, I'll be having sessions, of course, to help prepare students for this very important examination. Alright, so today we're going to be looking at consumer arithmetic. Remember as well to please ensure that you click on the link for May tickets, join May tickets, because I will be sending important material to students who are students who have joined May tickets. So important material will be sent, so you can always be updated. You'll have the material to assist you to prepare for the examination. So click on the link below and join May tickets. You can get all valuable information that can assist in preparation for the examination. Alright, so today we're looking at consumer arithmetic. So looking at consumer arithmetic. Okay, so under consumer arithmetic today, we'll be looking at topics and of course questions in relation to these topics. On simple interest, we'll be looking at compound interest. Of course, consumer arithmetic should be there. Compound interest, foreign exchange, wages, profit and loss, hire purchase, bills, and commission. So we're going to start with simple interest. As we know, simple interest, it is equal to principal by rate by time all over 100. We know simple interest involves, if you want to take a loan, or if you have money saved in your account at any financial institution, the money that you borrow or the money you have saved will be known as a principal. And all financial institutions will charge an annual rate. That rate is represented as a percentage, and of course, if you borrow money, you have to repay the money that you borrow within a specific time frame. So that is the time, and it's always represented in years. Very important. The time is represented in years. And note, similarly, if you have money saved, the money you have saved will be the principal. The bank will charge an annual rate, and you'll have money saved for a specific time. Now, for money that you borrow, obviously if you borrow money from any financial institution, you have to repay that money that you borrow, and you have to repay that money plus interest. So the bank will not lend you money and tell you to repay what you borrow exactly. You have to repay what you borrow plus interest, because the financial institution has to benefit from you borrowing from them. Similarly, if you have money saved in a financial institution, then the financial institution will reward you for saving, right, with them, and that reward will be the interest added on the money you have saved, which is your principal. So note your rate a percentage, and your time is always in years. Okay, so very important for us to remember. So rate represented as a percentage, time in years. Now, interest is found by using the formula principal by rate by time over 100, P by R by T over 100. Now, we can be asked to determine what is the principal, and the principal, if we have the interest, is equal to principal by rate by time over 100, then we can make the principal the subject by simply cross multiplying. So I get 100 times I is equal to P by R by T, and therefore we can make P the subject by removing RT. So I'm going to divide both sides by rate times time. I'm going to do to one side and must do to the other. So that will be 100 times the interest over the rate by time. So my rate cancels, time cancels, principal stands alone. That is equal to 100 times the interest over the rate by the time. So we know principal is equal to 100 I times I over the rate times the time. Similarly, the time, we can make time the subject. So time will be equal to, as we see from before, if I make time the subject, it means I have to divide both sides by the principal and rate. And this is what I'm going to obtain if I have to make time the subject. Similarly, the rate, to get the rate as a subject, it means I need to remove the principal and the time. So it means I'm going to divide both sides by P times T to obtain what I have here as the rate. And of course, the amount of money that we need to repay any financial institution that we borrow, or the amount that we are required to receive for saving, right? The amount accruing will be the principal plus the interest. So A represents what we accrue, and P is the principal plus I the interest. So important formula we need to know. So let's look at some questions in relation to simple interest. So it says here, Thomas invested $1,490 at 6% simple interest per annum. Calculate the interest in dollars earned after 6 months. So we have here Thomas invested, this is our principal, $1,498. And of course the rate R, it is 6%. And they want us to tell what's the interest in dollars earned after 6 months. So time is 6 months. But remember, the time must be represented in years. So 6 months will be half of a year. And if we have to determine the interest on this principal $1,498 invested, the interest will be the principal by the rate by the time all over 100. The principal, it is $1,498 times the rate, which is 6%, times the time, which will be half of a year, all over 100. So we work that out. What are we going to get? This will be 1498 times 6 times 0.5, which will be 4494 divided by 100. When we divide that by 100, we're going to get $44.94. So the interest in dollars earned after 6 months will be $44.94. So they want us to calculate the total amount of money in his account after 3 years. What is the total amount of money in his account after 3 years? So again, we're working with a principal of 1,498, a rate of 6%. This time our time will be 3 3 years. And we want the total amount of money in his account after 3 years. So what we need to do is first calculate the principal calculate the interest on this $1,498 invested. Our interest will be the principal, which is 1,498, by the rate, which is 6%, by the time, which is 3 years, all over 100. When we work that out, what are we going to get? This will be 1,498 times 6 times 3, which is 26,964 divided by 100, which will give us $269.64. That's the interest, but they asked us to calculate the total amount. So this is part 2 we're looking at here. So the total amount of money in his account after 3 years. So the total amount of money, total, will be to add this interest to his principal. So it's going to be 1,498 plus 269.64. And when we add those two, it's going to help us determine what is the total amount of money in his account after 3 years. So this will be 1,498 plus 269.64, and we're going to have $1,767.64. So this is the amount of money in his account after 3 years. And part 3, we ask how long it will be before his investment earns $449.40. So how long means or represents time. So let us determine how long. So part 3, so for part 3, we want to determine what is the time. So that's what we want to determine. We are given the interest, and we add the interest, which is $449.40. So we have to determine what is the time. You know, time is equal to 100 multiplied by the interest all over the principal times the rate. This is how we are going to determine what is the time. So this will be 100 times the interest, which is $449.40, all over the principal. Principal is $1,490 times the rate, which is 6%. And let's determine what is the time. This will be 100 times 449.40, and this will be divided by 1,498 times 6. So we're going to get the time will be 5 years. Okay, so looking at some past paper questions on simple interest to ensure we're clear on how to utilize our formula for simple interest, understanding what simple interest is all about. Let's look at the second question. So, second question. Mr. Adams invested $5,000 at the credit union and received $5,810, inclusive of simple interest after 3 years. determine the simple interest earned. So 1, we have Mr. Adam, he invested, so this is his principal, which is 5,000, and he received, which is the amount of borrowing, he received 5,000, this is how much he's going to receive, 5,810, right? And after 3 years, time of course will be great. And they want us to determine what is the simple interest earned. Yeah? So we know that the amount of borrowing is equal to the principal plus the interest. So we have to determine what is the interest. All we have to do is to subtract the principal from the amount of borrowing. So we're going to subtract P from both sides to get the interest by itself, which is equal to A subtract P. So A, of course, will be $5,810. Subtract the principal, which is $5,000. And of course, when we subtract those two, our interest will be equal to $810. So the simple interest earned for part 1 of this second question, it is $810. Now, so what does it determine? What is the annual interest rate paid by the credit union? What's the annual interest rate? So for us to determine the rate, so we can have part 2. So we know the rate. To find rate, we have to know what's the formula to determine the rate. And the rate is equal to 100 times the interest over the principal by time. Straightforward. And of course, we worked out the interest earlier to be $810. So let us determine what is the rate. So, and the rate is represented as a percentage. So this will be 100 times the interest, which is 810, over the principal, which is 5,000, multiplied by the time, which is 3 years. So I'm sure you know our formula for rate. So this will be 100 multiplied by 810 divided by 5,000 times 3. So you're going to get a rate of 5.4%. Keep in mind our rate, it is always represented as a percentage. Now let's look at part 3. Part 3 says, what is the length of time? So this is 5.4%. Part 3, the length of time it will take for Mr. Adams' investment to be doubled at the same rate of interest. So the length of time it will take Mr. Adams' investment to double. So his investment is 5,000. If it doubles, it means that we'll go to 10,000. But in order for it to double, it means that an interest of 5,000 had to be added to that principal, right? For it to get to $10,000. So if we have to determine the time, so we can have part 3, we say it's part 2. So we can have part 3 now. So we have to determine part 3, our time it will take for Mr. Adams' investment to double. Of course, we know that the principal is 5,000. If it doubles, it means it will move to 10,000. In order for it to move to 10,000. To move from 5 to 10, it means obviously 5,000 had to be added to it, right? To make it double. And therefore, it will indicate us that the interest, it is $5,000. Yeah, we want to determine what is the time, of course, the rate. It's 5.4%. And we want to determine the length of time it will take. So time will be 100 times the interest over the principal by rate. So that will be 100 times the interest, which will be 5,000 over the principal, which is 5,000, times the rate, which is 5.4%. So let's work it out and see what the time will be for the investment to double. So this will be 100 by 5,000 . 500,000. This is 5,000. My two 5,000, we could have cancelled those two, divide them into each other. So let's divide 100 by 5.4. Let's do that easy. So 100 divided by 5.4 will give us 18.5 years. Right, so 18.5 years will take Mr. Adams' investment to double at the same rate of interest. Good? So you want to ensure that we understand when it comes to simple interest, what is the formula for interest, how we can rearrange the formula to make principal the subject, rate the subject, time the subject, and of course use those important formulators to assist us in finding what is required in relation to simple interest. So let's look at a third question. A loan of 12,000 was borrowed from a bank at 14% per annum. Calculate the interest on the loan at the end of the first year. So straightforward. We know that part 1, interest on the loan. We know that interest, so first let me state what information we have. We have the principal, which is 12,000. We have the rate, which is 14%. And we want to determine what's the interest on the loan at the end of the first year. So the interest, we know it's principal by rate by time, of course the time being 1 year, all over 100. Our principal is going to be 12,000. Our rate 40%, our time 1 year, all over 100. And when we work that out, what are we going to get as the interest on the loan at the end of the first year? That's 12,000 multiplied by 14 divided by 100. So the interest on the loan will be $1,680. That's at the end of the first year. So they want us to determine part 2, what is the total amount owing at the end of the first year. So the total amount owing will be the principal plus interest. Our principal, it is $12,000 plus the interest, which is 1,680. So therefore, we're going to have the amount owing, total amount owing at the end of the year will be 12,000 plus 160 will give us $13,680. Now let's look at the third part of this question. a repayment of 7,800 was made at the start of the second year. Calculate the amount still outstanding at the start of the second year. So let's determine what's the amount still outstanding. So a repayment of 7,800 was made at the start of the second year. So for part 3, the amount still outstanding will be to subtract our 7,800 from the total amount owing, and that will be for part 3, outstanding amount. That will be 13,680, and we're going to subtract from that $7,800. So that will give us 13,680 subtract $7,800. So 13,680 subtract 7,800. Right, so we'll get here amount outstanding would be $5,880. That's the amount still outstanding at the start of the second year. And they want us now to determine, calculate the interest on the outstanding amount at the end of the second year. What is the interest on the outstanding amount? So part 4, the interest on the outstanding amount, the interest we know is principal by rate by time all over 100. Our principal, and that's on the outstanding amount, which is the 5,880. So it's going to be, the principal in this case will be the 5,880 because we want the interest on the outstanding amount. So that's 5,880 by the rate, which is 14%. By the time will be 1 year, because the 1 year outstanding amount at the end of the second year. So that's 1 year all over 100. So we're going to get 5,880 times 14 divided by 100. So that will be $823.20. That's the interest on the outstanding amount at the end of the second year. So we can show that we are clear on simple interest. So moving on to now compound interest. So compound interest is basically interest attracting interest. So when you work out the interest, say you have to determine what is the compound interest over a 3-year period, then every year when you work out the interest, that interest is reinvested. So as you reinvest, your principal will increase. So as you reinvest the interest, your principal will increase and your interest will also increase. And of course, your interest will be compounded over the period. Compound means bring together. So when we talk about compound interest, it's interest attracting interest. So for us to determine what is the amount of money that is owed to us if we have our money saved in a financial institution, then we know that we can determine that which is the amount accruing can be found by using this important formula for compound interest, which we must know. That is the principal, and in brackets you're going to have 1 plus the rate divided by 100. In brackets, of course, open and close brackets, raised to power n. So A is the amount of money accruing after n years, P is your principal, R is the rate, percent per annum, N is the number of years in which the money was invested. Right? And if you have to determine the compound interest, we know that we simply subtract the principal from the amount accruing in order for us to determine the compound interest. So very important formula we need to know for compound interest. So let's look at one or two questions. So a credit union pays 8% per annum compound interest on all fixed deposit. So 8% compound interest. This is what a credit union is paying. A customer deposited $24,000 in an account. Calculate the total amount of money in the account at the end of 2 years. Of course, we can calculate using the long approach where we determine the interest every year and we reinvest that interest so the principal will increase and we work out the interest on that new principal. You can, treat it like that if you wish. Or we can use the short approach, which is the formula approach. So to calculate the total amount of money in the account at the end of the 2 years, we have, let's state what information we have first. We have the principal, which is $24,000. We have the rate, which is 8%. We have the time, calculate the total amount of money in the account at the end of 2 years, which is 2 years. And we want to determine what is the amount of money in the account, the amount of accruing at the end of that 2-year period. So that will be A is equal to P, open brackets, remember our formula is going to be 1 plus R divided by 100. Of course, 1 plus R divided by 100 is within open and close brackets raised to the power of n. Alright, so important formula for us to know. And let us substitute into our formula. The principal, as we know, is 24,000. Open brackets, 1 plus the rate is going to be 8%. So we're going to simply place 8 all over 100. Raised to the power of n, and n will be 2. So we know this is 24,000. And in brackets, we can, divide 8 by 100 to give us 0.08, which will add to 1, which will give us 1.08. So we're going to square 1.08, then we multiply that result by $24,000. So 1.08 times 1.08 multiplied by 24,000 will give us the amount of credit will be $27,993.60. So when it comes to compound interest, very important for us to remember this formula. Okay? So all questions we're looking at are questions taken from the CSEC past papers, and we want to ensure when we see such questions in relation to the specific topic under consumer arithmetic, we're able to answer competently. Alright, let's look at another. So I'm erasing this information. And it says here, Micah invests a certain amount of money in a bank that pays compound interest at a rate of 2.5% per annum. At the end of 2 years, the value of her investment is $7,564.50. Calculate the amount Micah invested. So we have to determine what is the principal, which is the amount she invested. So let's state all the information that we have. We have the amount accrued, which is the value of her investment when she invested, what she obtained at the end of her investment, the period of her investment. That is the amount accrued. It is $7,564.50. We know what is the rate the rate is equal to 2.5%, and the time, of course, is 2 years. And we are asked to determine the amount Micah invests. So which is the principal? So we need to determine what's the principal. So it's a question involving compound interest. We know what's the formula, and they assisted us. They gave us the formula for compound interest, so very good of them. So we know that A is equal to P open bracket 1 plus R all over 100 raised to the power n. So our objective is to find P, and we're going to substitute all the variables in that formula and then proceed to find P. So we know A is $7,564.50. P is what we want to find. Open brackets 1 plus R, it's 2.5. All over 100, close brackets, raised to the power of n, which is 2. This will be $7,564.50 is equal to P, open brackets, that is 1 plus 2.5 over 100. 2.5 divided by 100 is 0.025 plus 1, which will give us 1.025 squared. So we're going to square that, so that will be 1.025 times 1.025 will give us, this will be 7564.50 is equal to 1.05065 P. And for us to get P by itself, it means we're going to divide both sides by 1.050625. That is 1.050625 times the principal. And from your knowledge of equations, the opposite of multiplication is division. So P will be 7564.50 divided by 1.0500625. When we divide those two, let's see what we're going to get as our answer. 7564.50 divided by 1.0500625. Right, that will give us $7,200 will be our principal. So our principal P is $7,200. So you see how we can utilize our formula to help us to obtain what is required. Again, basic knowledge of transpositions, and once you know how to solve equations, then to make P the subject of the formula should be pretty straightforward. Alright, let's move on. So looking at foreign exchange. So another topic under consumer arithmetic, you can see this is an exam, it's foreign exchange. This is a topic you see regularly in the exam. And when we talk about foreign exchange, right, it's the rate of exchange between two countries, telling us the amount of currency of a country that is equivalent to the amount of currency of another country. Yeah? And in order for us to do so, we must know what is the exchange rate between the two countries, so we can convert from one currency to another. And note, this is very important when you're dealing with conversions from one currency to another. The currency on the left can be convert from the currency on the left to the currency on the right. So anytime you convert it, what you have to convert to must always be on the right of the relationship. So you establish a relationship between the two currencies. That's the exchange rate between the two. And what we have to convert to, it's always on the right of the relationship. So let's look at some questions. The table below shows rates of exchange. We have US $1 is equal to EC Eastern currency of $2.70. TT $1 is equal to EC 40 cents. So they want us to calculate the value of EC $1 in TT dollars. So what is EC $1 in TT dollars? What is that? So in order for us to make that conversion, we have to look at the exchange rate between TT and EC dollars. And we have it here. They gave us that information. But remember, we want to convert to TT dollars. If we have to convert to TT dollars, using our initial relationship or exchange rate, TT must be on the right side of the relationship. What you have to convert to is always on the right. So we're going to write here our solution to this. Part 1, we're going to state EC $0.40 is equal to TT $1. Then we want to determine what 1 EC is equal to. So first to determine what 1 EC is equal to, we have to determine what 1 cent EC is equal to. Yeah? So EC 1 cent. So we have 40 cents. What 1 cent is equal to will be TT $1 divided by 40 cents EC. And therefore we can determine now what $1 EC is equal to. So EC $1 will be equal to $1 over 40 cents times $1. Good? Let's work that out so we can determine what is EC $1 in TT dollars. So this is 1 divided by 0.4. Right? Multiplied by 1, which is TT $2.50. Right? So EC $1 is equal to TT $2.50, making the conversion. So that's part 2. US $80 in EC dollars. What is US $80 in EC dollars? So first let's check to ensure that we know what is the conversion rate or exchange rate of exchange between the two currencies. Let's see if that is given. And yes, the rate of conversion is there. We have US and EC, right? The conversion US $1 is equal to EC $2.70. So therefore that will help us to convert our US $80 to EC. And remember, what you have to convert to is always on the right of the relationship. So let's use what we have, the conversion rate. So we know that US $1 is equal to EC $2.70. You know 1 US is equal to that amount of EC. So therefore, what is 80 US? If you know what 1 US is equal to, then 80 US will be to simply multiply $2.70 by 80. So this will give us the amount of EC dollars, what 80 US is equivalent to in EC dollars. So this will be 270 times 80. Right, so we're going to get here EC $216. Yeah? So let's look at part 3. Part 3, they want us to convert TT $648 in US. So we're going to convert TT $648 in US. So to do so, again, we look at our rates of exchange, and there is no rate of exchange between TT and US. It's in US and EC, TT and EC, not TT and US. So in order for us to convert 648 TT to US, because there is the exchange rate between TT and EC, US and EC, what we have to do first is convert our TT 648 to EC dollars, and then we convert EC dollars to US. So that's the process we have to take, because there's no rate of exchange between TT and US directly from what was given. Yeah? So we have to go that route. TT to EC, then EC to US. So let's do so. So we want to convert 648 TT to US. So let's convert 648 TT to EC first. And we have our relationship, TT $1 is equal to EC 40 cents. But we have to convert it always on the right of the relationship. So we're going to start with TT. $1 is equal to EC 40 cents. So whatever 1 TT is equal to EC, then it's easy for us to convert 648 TT to EC. So TT 648, want to know what 1 is equal to, then 648 is to multiply 648 by 0.4. And what are we going to get in EC? That's 648 multiplied by 0.40. That's $259. That's EC, $259.20. So that's what TT 648 is equal to in EC. So now that we know what TT 648 is equal to in EC, let's convert that amount to US. So again, we're using the relationship between US and EC. But remember, what you have to convert to, it's always on the right of the relationship. So we're going to start by stating here, EC $2.70 will be equal to US $1. Good? And therefore we can find for 1 EC and hence 259.20 EC. So therefore we go EC $1 is equal to $1 over 270, and therefore $259.20 EC will be $1 over 2.70 times 259.20. Let's work that out to see how much US that is equal to. So this is 1 divided by 2.7 multiplied by 259.20. Right, so this will be equal to US $96. Yeah? So TT $648, it is equivalent to US $96. So converting from one currency to another, foreign exchange, right? Let's look at another. So it says here that at Bank A, US $1 is equal to Barbados $1.96. Calculate the value of US $700 in Barbados dollars, right? So straightforward. Again, once we know the rate of exchange, then it's easy for us to convert from one currency to another. So part 1, and again we have to convert to Barbados dollars. So therefore it means that that currency must be on the right of the relationship. So we're going to state here US $1 is equal to Barbados $1.96. So therefore US $700. Once you want 1 is equal to, we can find the 700. That's 196 times 700. 1.96 times 700, which will give us. Right, so that will be Barbados $1,372. This is what US $700 is equal to. Alright? Now, let's look at part 2. So that's part 1, part 2. At bank B, the value of US 7,000 is equal to Barbados $1,386. Calculate the value of $1 in Barbados at this bank. Again, straightforward, you know the rate of exchange, let's use it. And again, we have to convert to Barbados dollars from US to Barbados, so Barbados will be on the right. And they gave us the relationship. US 700, and this is at bank B, so we have bank A, we have bank B. So US 700 is equal to Barbados $1,386. So what is US $1 equal to? So if you know what US 700 is equal to Barbados, you can easily find for US $1, which will be to divide Barbados 1,386 by 700. When we divide the two, let's see what we're going to get. That will help us determine what $1 is equal to in Barbados dollars. So this will be 1,386 divided by 700, which will give us Barbados $1.98. Alright? So we want to make sure we're clear on our foreign exchange. You see this in an exam, easy marks in the bar, right? Let's look at another. So we have here take a quick one. Right, so let's continue. in this question, use Canadian $1 to equal to Jamaican $72.50. So they said on a vacation in Canada, Steve used his credit card to buy a camera for Canadian $250. What is the value of the camera in Jamaican dollars? So again, it states here on a vacation in Canada, Steve used his credit card to buy a camera for Canadian $250. So they want us to determine what is the value of this camera in Jamaican dollars. So we have our exchange rate or rate of exchange between the two currencies, Canadian and Jamaican. So if we have to determine what is 250 Canadian in Jamaican dollars, again using our exchange rate and showing that Jamaican dollars, what we have to convert to is on the right of the relationship. So this will be Canadian $1 is equal to Jamaican $72.50. So therefore, we know that Canadian $250 will be Jamaican $72.50 times 250. When we multiply the two, what are we going to get? This will be $72.50 times 250, and that will give us Jamaican $18,125. Yeah? So we have determined what is the value of the camera in Jamaican dollars. Canadian $250 converted to Jamaican will be $18,125. Then it states part 2. Steve's credit card limit is Jamaican $30,000. His credit card limit is that amount. After buying the camera, how many Canadian dollars does he have left on his credit card for spending? Right? So Steve, his credit card limit in Jamaican dollars is $30,000. And after buying the camera, how many Canadian dollars does he have left on his credit card? So let us first determine, when we subtract the amount of money used for purchasing the camera, right, from the amount he has on his credit card, that difference now we have to convert back to Canadian dollars. So we know how many Canadian dollars does he have left on his credit card for spending. So we know that so amount remaining on credit card, that will be equal to Jamaican $30,000 subtract Jamaican $18,125. So let's subtract the two. 30,000 subtract 18,125. So that will be Jamaican 11875 is what is remaining on the card. And now let us convert that amount into Canadian dollars, and we can do so by using our exchange rate, and we have to convert to Canadian dollars. So what we have to convert to must be on the right of the relationship. So we're going to write here Jamaican $72.50 is equal to Canadian $1. So therefore Jamaican $1 will be 1 all over $72.50, and therefore Jamaican 11875 will be equal to 1 all over 7250 times 11875. So we can simply work it out. 11875 divided by 7250, which will be calculated to Canadian $163.79. Good. So after buying the camera, we know that Steve would have been left with this amount of Jamaican dollars, and therefore we can convert that amount of Jamaican dollars to Canadian dollars. That's what we have there. Alright? So let's move on to another. So another currency question. So Guyanese $1, Guyana's $1 is equal to US 1 cent. EC $1 is equal to US 37 cents. Calculate the value of one Guyanese $60,000 in US. So again, we want to convert Guyanese to US, so you have to know what is the exchange rate between Guyanese dollars and US dollars we have. So we have to convert to US. US must be on the right of the relationship. So part 1, we know that Guyana's $1 is equal to US 1 cent. So 60,000 Guyanese dollars will be equal to 0.01 times 60,000. And 0.01 times 60,000 will give us, right, US $600. So that's part 1. So Guyanese $60,000 is equal to US $600. And part 2, what is US $925 in EC dollars? So we have to convert US to EC dollars again. We have to use our exchange rate between US and EC, which we do have, but again, what we have to convert to must be on the right of the relationship. So EC must be on the right, so let's state here US 37 cents is equal to EC $1, and therefore for us to determine what 925 US is equal to, let's determine what US $1 is equal to. That will be equal to $1 all over US 37 cents, and therefore US $925 is equal to $1 over 0.37 times 925, which will give us $1 divided by 0.37 multiplied by 925 will give us EC $2,500. Okay, so making sure we're clear on rates of exchange, foreign exchange, ensuring that we can convert from one currency to another. Right, let's look at next, wages. So with wages, we have to understand that there are 3 types of wages. There's basic wage, and your basic wage is equal to the basic rate, which is the hourly rate, how much you're paid per hour, times the basic week. The basic week is the number of hours you work per week. The overtime wage, of course, when you work additional hours, within the week, you may work over the weekend. So working overtime there's a wage for such known as overtime wage, and it is the overtime rate multiplied by the number of hours worked overtime. Now the overtime rate, so the overtime rate, you can be paid time and a quarter, and that is 1 1/4 times the basic rate. You can be paid time and a half, that's 1 1/2 times the basic rate. You can be paid double time, which is 2 times the basic rate. And you can be paid triple time, 3 times the basic rate. So when it comes to the rate for overtime, this is what we use depending on what is given, what they ask for in terms of the overtime rate. There are 4, and we can use this to help us to determine what's the overtime rate. And of course, the gross wage is your basic wage plus your overtime wage. So gross wages simply adding 2 wages. So overtime wage will be the overtime rate times the number of hours worked overtime. Basic wage will be your basic rate times the basic week. So let's look at some questions. So it says here, the basic wage earned by a truck driver for a 40-hour week, it is $560. That's the basic wage. Calculate his hourly rate. That's the basic rate, right? So his hourly rate or basic rate will be to divide his basic wage by the number of hours he worked for the week, which is known as his basic week. So it's going to be $560 divided by 40. And when we divide 560 by 40, we're going to get $14. So that's his hourly rate, his basic rate. 2, for overtime worked, the driver is paid 1 1/2 times the basic hourly rate. Calculate his overtime wage for 10 hours. So first determine overtime wage. His overtime wage will be his overtime rate times the number of hours worked overtime. So his overtime rate will be, he worked overtime and is paid time and a half. That's 1 1/2 times his basic hourly. So that's the same as time and a half. So that's 1 1/2 times his basic hourly rate, which is $14. That's 3/2 times 14. That will give us $21. So that is overtime rate. But we are asking to what is the overtime wage? So the overtime, we put the overtime rate. So the overtime wage will be to multiply the overtime rate of $21 by the number of hours worked overtime, which is 10 hours. And that will give us $210. Part 3. Calculate the total wages earned by the truck driver for a 55-hour week. If it's a 55-hour week, then this 55-hour week, will comprise of your 40-hour week, right? Because remember, a truck driver works 40 hours per week, 40-hour week. Plus a 15-hour week. And of course, that 15-hour week will be, if it's 40 hours, will be his basic, 40 hours will represent his basic wage, then 15 hours will be overtime. So we already know the 40-hour week he will get $560. So we need to determine how much he's going to work, how much he's going to obtain or receive for working 15 hours, which will be considered overtime. So let's work that out. So it's overtime wage. This is for the 15 hours. The overtime wage will be the overtime rate, which is $21, times the number of hours worked overtime, which is 15. So this is 21 by 15, which is $315. So therefore, for the 55-hour week, the total wages earned will be to add the wage for 40 hours, which will be $560, plus the overtime wage for 15 hours worked for the week of $315. When we add those two, we're going to have what is the total wages earned, or total wages here earned for the 55-hour week. So that will be 560 plus 315, which will give us 875. Alright? So making sure that we understand our wages. So let's look at another. Wages again. So looking at CSEC past paper questions, consumer arithmetic, ensure that we're clear on how to answer some of these questions under consumer arithmetic. So a company pays its employees a basic wage of $9.50 per hour for a 40-hour week. Calculate his basic weekly wage for one employee. So the weekly wage for one employee, we know when it comes to wages, part 1 is basic wage, right? So this is for one employee, will be to take the basic rate, that's the hourly rate, $9.50, times the number of hours worked for the week, which is 40 hours. So this is $9.50 times 40, that's $9.50 times 40, which is $380. Now, part 2, overtime is paid at a rate of time and a half, 1.5 times the basic rate. They want us to calculate the overtime wage for an employee who works 6 hours overtime in a certain week. So they want us to determine what is the overtime wage. Overtime wage will be the overtime rate, which will be time and a half, 3/2, 1.5 times the basic rate of $9.50, and of course the employee worked for 6 hours, so the number of hours worked over time, so this will be 1.5 times 950, that's $14.25 times 6. And $14.25 times 6 will give us $85.50. Right? So that is the overtime wage for an employee who works 6 hours overtime in a certain week. Now, in a certain week, the company paid its 30 employees a total of $12,084 in basic and overtime wages. So that's a gross wage, right? A combination of the two. Calculate for that week the total paid in overtime wage. What is the total paid in overtime wage? So the total paid in overtime wage, remember that $12,084 represents the gross wage. So we're going to part 3. This is the gross wage, which is your basic wage, plus overtime wage. So the gross wage is $12,084. We want to determine what is the basic wage. So we have 30 employees. We know what's the basic wage for one employee. That basic wage is $380. So therefore for 30 employees, the basic wage will be $380 times 30 plus the overtime wage, right? So 380 times 30 will give us what? 380 multiplied by 30 will give us 11,400 plus the overtime wage. So OT stands for overtime, right? And we have $12,084. So what's the overtime wage? The overtime wage will be simply to subtract 11,400 from $12,084, and we're going to determine there what is the overtime wage. So the overtime wage will be $12,084 subtract 11,400. So we're going to get here $12,084 subtract 11,400, which is $684. Will be the overtime wages. This is part 3. And part 4, they want us to determine the total number of overtime hours worked by employees. The total number of overtime hours worked. Yeah? By these 30 employees. So the total number of overtime worked, once you know what is the overtime wage, we can determine the number of hours worked. So, part 4, so the overtime wage is equal to the overtime rate multiplied by the number of hours worked overtime. That's a formula. We know what's the overtime wage, which is $684. We know that the overtime rate, it is $14.25. This is the overtime rate here, $14.25. Multiplied by the number of hours worked overtime. I'll put that as X. And therefore to get X, which is the number of hours worked overtime, I'm going to do the multiplications division. 684 divided by 1425. And that will help me to determine the number of hours worked overtime. So this is 684 divided by 14.25, which will give us $48. And that is equal to X. Alright, so we should let me understand wages. Overtime wage, basic wage, gross wage. Okay, let's look at profit and loss. So, with profit and loss, of course, We need to understand what is profit. Profit is your selling price, subtract your cost price. So the cost price is, you know, of course, what you purchase the item for initially, and selling price is what you will sell that item for. You make a profit when you sell the item for more than what you purchase the item for, right? So when the selling price is greater than the cost price, you make a profit. But on the flip, if the selling price is less than the cost price, then you make a loss. So, and note, both profit and loss can be represented as a percentage. So the profit percentage will be your profit, which is your selling price, subtract your cost price, and it's always all over the original cost price times 100. Similarly, your percentage loss will be your loss or your cost price minus selling price, all over your cost price times 100. You should know these important formulae, right? So let's get some questions. All pass over questions. Mrs. Jack bought 150 t-shirts for $1,920 from a factory. Calculate the cost of one t-shirt. So we have 150 t-shirts will be 1,920. So one t-shirt will be what? So one t-shirt will be 1,920 divided by 150. Yeah, that's the cost of one t-shirt. This is 1,920 divided by 150, which will be $12.80. That's the cost of one t-shirt. So t-shirts are sold at $19.99 each. Calculate the amount of money Mrs. Jack received after selling all of the t-shirts. So what is the amount of money Mrs. Jack received after selling all? So we know this is 2. So the selling price, well, amount received after selling all will be to simply multiply 150 by your $19.99. And this will give us 150 times 1990. Right, so this will be $2,998.50. So that's the amount received after selling water. And what's the total profit made? So part 3, the profit will be the selling price minus the cost price, which is 1,950. Yeah? So we sold it for more than what we purchased it for initially. So obviously we're going to make a profit. So that will be $2,990.50 subtract $1,920. When we subtract the 2, what are we going to get as our profit? $2,998.50 subtract 1,920 will give us $1,078.50. So that's a profit made. Now part 4, they want us to determine what is the profit made as a percentage of the cost price. Giving your answer correctly, the nearest whole number. So profit as a percentage of the cost price. So part 4. So that is the profit percent. That is your profit, which is 1078.50 divided by the cost price, which is 1,920. get here 1078.5 divided by 1920 multiplied by 100 will give us 56.17%, and to the nearest whole that will be 56%. So look at the unit of the whole. Of course, the number after, digit after, which is that first digit after the point, it's less than 5. So your 6 stays as is. So 56% will be our answer for that question. And let's look at another. So we have here, we listen. The table below shows the cost price, selling price, and the profit or loss as a percentage of the cost price. Copy and complete the table below, inserting the missing values in 1 and 2. So let's determine what is the missing value in 1. So you have your cost price, you have your selling price. So obviously, if you look, the selling price is less than the cost price. Obviously, what's going to happen here? You're going to have a loss. So the loss will be your cost price minus selling price. The cost price is $55. The selling price is $44. So we're going to have a loss of $11. Now, what is the percentage loss? So the percentage loss will be to take our loss, we're going to put it all over the cost price times 100, which is 11, all over the cost price, which is 55, times 100. So we're going to get here, this will be 11 times 100 divided by 55, which is 20%. So that will be the percentage loss, 20%. Then they ask us to now determine what is the cost price given that there is a 25% profit. Alright? So if there's a 25% profit, it means that and if the selling price is 100, it means that the cost price has to be less than the selling price. So whatever we work out as a cost price, it has to be less than the selling price because you made a profit. But let's determine what will be the cost price based on this 25% profit. So we're going to determine that. What we do is this. We know that if it's 25% profit, and we need to determine the cost price, 25% profit, if you make a profit, consider the cost price to be 100, initial to be 100, and if you make a 25% profit, it means that 100% will increase to 25%. 125%, if you add that 25% to that 100%, is going to increase to 125%. So the selling price will equate to, in terms of percentage, 125%. So we can state in part 2, 125% is equal to $100. And the cost price will equate to 100%. The selling price is 125%. 125 is equal to $100. So you want to determine what is 100%. 100% will represent what your cost price is equal to. So if 125% is $100, 1% will be 100 divided by 125. And therefore 100%. So working backwards, 100% will be 100 over 125 times 100. And that will be 100 divided by 125 multiplied by 100. Right, will give us $80. So the cost price for a profit of 25% will be $80. Alright? So let's look at another question. So let's look at this one here. So a jeweler paid $6,800 for 165 bracelets bought in China. The customs department in his country charged $1,360 in duty. Calculate the total cost of the bracelets inclusive of duty. What's the total cost of the bracelets? Alright? So the jeweler paid $6,800 for the 165 bracelets, and the custom department charged them $1,360. So the total cost of the bracelets will be total cost of bracelets will be to add the cost of the 165, when I add to that the duty. So 6,800 plus 1,360 will give us $8,160. Will be the total cost of the 165 inclusive of duty. And part 2, the jeweler sold the 165 bracelets at a selling price of $6.85 each. Calculate the total profit he made on the sale of the 165 bracelets. What's the profit he made? So the selling price, right? It's $6.85 each, but it's 165 of them. That's $68.85 times 165. And that will give us what? $68.65 times 165. That will give us $11,360.25. Good, so the 165 bracelets were sold for that amount. So they want us to determine what's the profit made. So the profit made, we know it is selling price minus the cost price. And the selling price will be the $1,360.25. Subtract the cost price, which is your 8,160, which is the cost of the bracelets plus the duty. Yeah? Okay, that's how much it cost him for the bracelets initially. So let's see what profit he would have made. So this is what? Subtract 8,160. So this will be $11,360.25. Subtract 8,160, which will give us $32,000. And 25 will be his profit. And part B, so this is 2A, 2B, calculate the profit as a percentage of the cost price, given your answer to the nearest whole number. So the percentage profit which is what? 32 0.25 divided by the cost price, which is your 8,160. I'm going to multiply by 100. So this is 3200.25 divided by 8160. Right, so we're going to get 39.2% or 39% to the nearest one. Alright? So you want to make sure that we're clear on these questions involving profit and loss. So let's quickly look at hire purchase. So hire purchase. So your hire purchase price, of course, when you buy something on hire purchase, of course, you may want to buy a TV, you may want to buy a stove, fridge, in one of those appliance stores, furniture stores, and you may not have the full cash to buy that item. So these are, of course, furniture stores, appliance stores will allow you to purchase that item on hire purchase, where you make a down payment and the balance you will make in equal monthly installments until, of course, you pay it off, and you will obviously have your item. That's the item. You'll get that's the advantage. You'll get the item, but the disadvantage is that you'll be paying more than what it actually costs. But it may not be that bad because you're paying in equal monthly installments, enough that will not affect your pocket, right? So the disadvantage with hire purchase, you pay more than the cash price, but the advantage is you're going to get the item and you're paying small amounts manageable to your pocket every month, equal monthly installments until you clear up for the item, all right? So you must make a down payment, and of course you have the outstanding balance. So for this question, the cash price of a laptop is $1,299. So you want to buy this laptop, that's the cost. It can be bought on hire purchase by making a deposit. So make a deposit and 10 monthly payments of $120 each. What is the total hire purchase price of the laptop? Okay, so getting a laptop, it's $1,299. You don't have the cash, but you can get it if you want to buy it on hire purchase. And let's see what it will cost if it is purchased on hire purchase. So the hire purchase price, so HP will be hire purchase, will be your down payment plus outstanding balance. And the down payment is, or the deposit is $350 plus the outstanding balance is going to be 10 monthly payments at $120 each. So it's going to be 10 by 120. That's $350. 10 by 120, that will be 1,200. And 350 plus 1,200 will give us $1,550. So that will be the higher purchase price. You see, it's more than the cash price. Yeah? So how much is saved by buying the laptop cash? So if you bought it cash, how much you will save? So that's a disadvantage of the hire purchase. You always pay more than, but as I said, the advantage is you're able to get the item and you're going to make small payments towards the item monthly, equal monthly installments until you clear to payments that are manageable to your pocket. And of course, you may have the item in hand. Alright, so part 2, how much money is saved. So amount saved by buying the laptop for cash. So the amount saved is just simply to subtract. If you bought it cash, this is how much you're going to save. It's going to be 1550 subtract 1299, which will be the amount saved will be $251. So if you bought it cash, then that is what you are going to see. Alright? So we're going to end the session now. Next week we're going to continue with more consumer arithmetic. We're going to be looking at consumer arithmetic 2. This was consumer arithmetic 1. So we're going to be looking at consumer arithmetic 2 next week. So we'll be looking at from bills, we'll be looking at commission, we'll be looking at discount, we'll be looking at taxes, VAT, sales tax, allowances, income tax, yeah, so we'll be looking at that. So a few other topics under depreciation. So we'll be looking at a number of topics, remaining topics under consumer arithmetic next week. So that's consumer arithmetic 2. Remember to please ensure that you join Made Tickets, subscribe to channel 1, you join Made Tickets 2, so you can have access to key and important material I'll be sending to you to help in preparation for the examination or preparation generally. Okay, so please look at in my bio and join using the link to have access or join Made Tickets using the link so you can benefit from all that will be shared. Alright, so that said, have a great afternoon and I'll see you all next time. Take care everyone.